Good evening and welcome to Watford Borough Council meeting 30th of January 2024. Welcome to those also viewing on the live stream. I am Councillor Simon Feldman, Chairman of Watford Borough Council. Also present today are Mayor Peter Taylor and all other councillors for Watford, unless apologies have been received. We're supported today by Donna Nolan, the Chief Executive, Carol Chen, the Group Head of Democracy and Governance, Hannah Doney, Chief Finance Officer, and other officers in the room. I'd like to remind all members to stand when they speak and then also to make sure you do turn your microphone on. If you wish to speak or when I ask you to vote, please raise your hand so the officers and I can see clearly, and only turn on your microphone once you're invited to speak. I'd also like to remind members that when we vote on the budget, we're required by law to have a named vote. At that point, I will ask the Group Head of Democracy and Governance to ask each member in turn how they wish to vote. Before we continue, I just need to advise we're not expecting any fire drills this evening. Therefore, if the alarm sounds, please leave as quickly as possible and make your way outside via the fire exits and round to the library, where we'll gather and check everyone is accounted for. Item number 1, apologies for absence, have been received from Councillor Lembard and Amanda Taylor. Are there any other apologies? Oh, sorry, not Hannah Grimston. It's a marriage we didn't know about. Can we have that in the minutes? Item number 2, more importantly, disclosure of interests. I'm now going to invite Carol to advise members regarding their interests on item number 10, members' allowance 2023 to 2024.
Thank you, Chair. Right, for that particular item. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Carol. Do members have any interest to declare on any of the other items in tonight's agenda? No interest, thank you. Item number 3, minutes. Do members agree that I sign the minutes of Council held on 17th of October 2023 as a correct record? Thank you. Item number 4, official announcements. We had the big events, fireworks at Casbury Park. Thank you very much to all the volunteers and everyone in council who organised that. For that, we raised £741 for Hertfordshire Mind. We also had the remembrance service. That took place on Sunday, the 12th of November at the Town Hall. We paraded from St Mary's along the High Street. And there was an excellent turnout to remember those who had taken part on 2 world wars and other conflicts since. That event's growing year on year, so thank you everyone who's taken part and made that a great success. We also had a Top Golf fundraiser in which we raised £1,200. And this weekend we had Holocaust Memorial Day. Myself with Mayor Peter Taylor and members from the local synagogue laid a wreath at the Anne Frank tree to mark Holocaust Memorial Day. In the King's New Year's Honours list, we'd like to congratulate all those across Hertfordshire who received an honour in the New Year's Honours list. Unfortunately, there were no Watford names in it this year, but hopefully next year. Neighbourhood locality funds. I would like to remind all councillors that all their applications to spend their neighbourhood locality budget must be completed and submitted to Democratic Services by the end of February. Related party transactions. Carol has sent all members an email last Tuesday with a related party transaction form. We're all required to complete this for our auditors. Please can you ensure you return it to Carol as soon as possible? Thank you. Council Vice Chairman for 2024-2025. At the next meeting, I will be announcing the nominations for the Vice Chairman. Each person nominated will need to be proposed and seconded. Council will then be asked to vote for the preferred candidate. Democratic Services Manager will write into all councillor shortly with further details. In other local interests, it's the Watford Rotary 100th centenary on the 17th of February, and they're having a celebration dinner. The Mayor, the Lord Lieutenant, and myself will be attending. Councillor Rabi Martins is their Vice President, and they're doing a lot of great fundraising in the town and are looking for good causes that may need some funding. So please speak to Councillor Martins afterwards if you have anything of interest. There are a number of events since last council. I'm not actually going to read all of them because there's quite a few. And let's move straight on to item number 5, Mayor's report. A report of the Mayor is attached to the agenda. Please can you raise your hand now if you wish to ask a question of the Mayor. Sorry. Councillor Bell, Councillor Watling. There we go. Got Councillor Main, Martins. Yeah, got everyone. Okay, I will. I'll then make a note. The following members have indicated they wish to ask questions. I've got everyone's names down. Okay, to remind you all, each question will have no longer than 1 minute per question. There are to be no statements or supplementaries except for Councillor Bell as the leader of the main opposition group, who may ask a supplementary question. Only members on the list may ask questions. And Dins is in there as well. Thank you. I now invite the Mayor to present his report.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As ever, very happy to answer questions on the report or anything else. One thing that I just wanted to add since the report was produced was Lambert Smith Hampton each year do a vitality index, which looks at how well our economy is doing, how the environment is, our residents, happiness, satisfaction, lots and lots. We came 3rd in the vitality index last year. They published the report this afternoon for this year, and Watford was 1st place of all the places in the country, which is a great achievement.
Thank you very much. I know the Mayor's presented his report. I now call members in order of names to ask their questions. I'll start with Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. And evening, everyone. Does the Mayor regret introducing the Arriva Click bus service, which ended on New Year's Eve?
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. I think it's really important that we invest in better public transport in this town, so I make no apology for the fact that we've done a lot to try to improve transport in Watford. We launched the Bowl Bike Scheme that's had over 400,000 journeys. Councillor Tremaine tried to seesaw funding for that, which was regrettable a few years ago. So I think it's right that we did it. We tried Arriva Click. It's something that has been tried in other places, Labour run Liverpool, Leicester and elsewhere. It wasn't as successful as we hoped, and Arriva took the decision to terminate the contract. This year we've launched the new shopper bus service, which is already proving really popular, helping residents to get to the shops and working with communities first. So I'm hoping that all councils will encourage people to use that new service.
Thank you very much. Councillor Watling, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for that, Mayor. But as the figures show that £1.5 million of council taxpayers' money was spent on this ultimately failed scheme, that was one of his flagship policies, of course, when he first stood as Mayor, what is his message to all Watford Council taxpayers about where their money went on the night we are discussing council tax and council services for the next year or two?
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I would say that my message to Watford residents is that I made a commitment to introduce that service. I think it's important that when you stand on a manifesto and say you're going to do something, you do it. And so I make no apologies for bringing forward a service. The numbers of people using that had increased over the course of the contract. I wish it was more, and I wish that Arriva hadn't made the decision to finish that bus service. Ultimately, they are a private company who can make that decision. I think the fundamental problem actually with bus services in Hertfordshire is that we're reliant on private companies. We should have a franchise model like they have in London, like they're introduced in Manchester. That's what I'd like to see in Hertfordshire, so that we can have more control over bus services, so that they're affordable, better quality, more reliable services, and that's something that I'll be pushing for.
Thank you very much. Now, Councillor Watling, please.
Thank you. So I've noticed in recent months, also, first of all, should I say, would the mayor, I'd like to ask the mayor whether he would agree with me on congratulating the council in their recent fly tipping campaign, which I raised to the council at last budget and have been campaigning on for the last year. So I'd like to thank the council for supporting me in my campaign. I'm just wondering if the mayor would like to join me.
Thank you, Councillor Watling. I do think it's important that we do that work. I know that Councillor Rodriguez and Councillor Williams, along with your ward colleagues, have been working very hard to tackle the issue of fly tipping. The latest figures show that the number of reported fly tips in Watford last year was lower than the previous year. I think it's really important that we have a great service from Violi where fly tips are removed, and also we investigate those cases and punish those people who do the fly tipping. So I think it's good that we're doing the work to tackle it, and I'm keen to work with all councillors on addressing that issue.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tremaine, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask the Mayor if you're aware of any postmasters in Watford who have been impacted by the Horizon scandal as presided over by Ed Davey. Thank you very much.
As you can see, the general election's coming. All I'll point out is that no Labour Post Office Minister ever met Alan Bates and the campaign team 5 months after Ed Davey became the Minister, despite being advised not to meet Alan Bates. He met Alan Bates as the first Minister to do that. I think it's actually really important that it isn't a political football, that all of us who watch that programme on ITV see the huge impact that this had on people. It's an absolute scandal. All parties should have dealt with it better. All of us should have dealt with it better. And I think that trying to make it into a political football, Alan Bates actually said Ed Davey shouldn't be used as a scapegoat. And I think one of the lessons from this is we should need to listen to people like Alan Bates. On the point about Watford residents, I've had regular meetings with the Post Office. I'm not aware of any postmasters or mistresses locally who've been affected by that, but of course keen to support anyone who's been affected by it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Trebar.
It's Trebar, but thank you. It's all right. I have two questions, really. The first one is on the thriving local economy and the shop local. I know I've seen the mayor himself in the 2 trees on the parade in Vicarage, and I would suggest to all the councillors that they pay it a visit. It's a great place. I'd just like to talk about the parade in general. It's a great area, and as I've brought to council before, it needs investment, it needs a little bit of TLC, and I think it's an area that we as the council should be supporting and should be providing more encouragement for. And the second one is about the greener town and the tree planting. And again, in a sustainability meeting, it came out that Vicarage has one of the lowest tree coverage areas of all the wards in Watford. Obviously, we have a very little green space. I'm not going to leave that there. But again, is it possible to have more investment in all the areas that are kind of lacking and provide more tree supplies there?
Thank you, Councillor. It's true that I do go to 2 trees. I would, like you, encourage people to visit there. It's a great microbrewery, and the team that are running it are doing a really good job. On the point about that parade needing a bit of TLC, I think it's important that we continue to invest in our parades. I know that work is happening in her ward on Whippendale Road going forward, and that's work being overseen by Councillor Stokesbury. So we're very happy to talk to her about what specifically they should like to see in that area and how we can improve it. On the tree planting, again, all residents and councillors can make requests for trees to be planted in their area. This last year, we planted more trees than ever before. I think it was 197 from memory on our streets and in our parks. Sometimes some streets can't get trees for whatever reason. There are logistical issues occasionally on planting them, but I'm always happy to look at places where we can plant more trees. When I stood to be mayor in 2022, I said that I wanted to plant 20,000 trees, including giving them away to residents and community groups. I can say that it's not even 2 years into my mayoralty, we've already achieved that 20,000. So we have been doing a lot to increase the tree coverage in Watford. Watford has a very high percentage of tree canopy. It's 18%, nationally it's 16%. So we take this I think it's a really important issue. We're doing lots. Very happy to work with councillors and residents where they think more trees could be planted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Martins.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Mayor, as you know, Watford is always challenged with housing, particularly social housing, and your committee does its best. Yet, very recently, the government overturned one of our decisions to reject a planning application because it didn't meet the residents' needs and indeed our judgment. Yet the government is now criticizing us for not doing planning properly. How do you think we should respond to this, and what do we tell our residents?
Yeah, thank you for raising that, Councillor Martins. I mean, the particular case you raised, 50 Clarendon Road, if you look at the judgment, the actual inspector said, you know, it doesn't meet our local plans, it doesn't meet national planning rules, it's poor quality, lack of light, small units. And yet, despite all of that, we're going to overrule the council, we're going to overrule the town, we're going to allow the developer to develop it. So I think it's important that councillors and residents recognise the reality of a flawed planning system that we have in this country. That, you know I get lots of criticism, but it's important to remember that the Conservative government tripled Watford's housing target. We've never met that target. They continue to say that we should be building more. They only in December produced a list of 59 councils that they said had failed to meet their target. As a result, you have to produce an action plan to build more. You also have to have a presumption in favour of sustainable development. I mean, that's the reality of the system we face. Watford's MP occasionally claims that, oh, it's just advisory. It's not advisory. We get these messages from government telling us you've not met the target. This is the consequence of it. And so I continue to make the case for a planning system where local residents and local councils actually are able to decide what's best for the area.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dinser, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. But my question's on Barrel's bikes. When the scheme was launched, it's been a good success, and the use of bikes has been really good. I've used them myself. But over the years, the standard of the bikes has deteriorated, and the stands where the bikes are meant to be quite often are empty, and bikes are dumped all over the town and not put back into the stands. My understanding was that when you take the bike, the person's being charged till they're put back in the stand. Is that correct? And B, I mean, if they're not putting them back in the stands, are they still paying the charge till that's been put in the? So that person must have loads of money if they can afford to pay that. And also, what are we going to do to improve the standard of the bikes and to ensure? Quite often at the start, used to see a van going around picking bikes and putting them into the stand.
And we'll close it off there.
And so if you could answer that question.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Councillor Dinser. So just a few points on that. I'm glad that Labour now support it and aren't proposing this budget to end the funding as they have done in the past. On the issue about the number of bikes, so one of the good things that's happening this year is the scheme is being expanded. So there'll be bays in Bushey, in Hertsmere Council, there'll be bays in Croxley, in Three Rivers Council. So that's a good thing for Watford residents and, of course, residents in those districts as well. And as part of that, there'll be 30 additional bikes, all electric bikes, because one of the things we've seen is the success of electric bikes in particular. I think the most recent figures in this month have shown more use of electric bikes than the normal pedal bikes and longer journeys being travelled on them. We were the first council of any type anywhere in the country to have electric bikes as part of our bike share scheme, which was a real achievement of this council. In relation to where the bikes end up, 96% of bikes end up in a bay. The 4% that don't end up in a bay, there is a surcharge. I believe it's £5, and Councillor Stokes will correct me if I'm wrong. So if you don't put your bike back in a bay, you get charged an extra £5 to encourage people to do that. That's a higher charge than most of the councils, because we need to be that motivation for people to return the bikes to the right bay.
Thank you. Councillor Esfidi.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to start by congratulating the council for the award of the Levelling Up Fund. And I wanted also to thank especially the officers that worked hard to achieve that. But I wanted to also ask the Mayor to explain to us provisionally what we're going to do with that Levelling Up Fund, and if we're expected to match that funding and how we are procuring that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ezersford, for that question. And I agree with you entirely about the thanks to officers who I know spent a lot of time working on it. One of the things I do have a big problem with the way that councils are funded, and we'll obviously come onto the budget later, but there is this begging bowl culture that councils have to go to government, spend a lot of time on these bids. When it was the second round of the Levelling Up Fund, 80% of councils got nothing. And so the amount of work that councils have done on those bids, we weren't successful in the second round, but then in the last round, we were able to secure the funding. So it's 16 million pounds provisionally, 8 million will go to the Coliseum. Work's ongoing there with AEG opening that. It'll be a fantastic venue for the town, very busy, and also community days as part of that. And then the other 8 million will go at a new innovation and incubation hub based at the town hall. In all likelihood, again, it will be supporting business growth, new businesses, existing businesses, creating a really great space for them. We are already investing significant amounts of money. We've agreed in previous cabinets and for councils to use some of our community infrastructure levy to fund this. So there is already a significant amount of council funding going in, but it's good that the government are also supporting that, and it shows that they recognise that we've got a good reputation delivering these schemes, and it's a huge credit to all of us that we managed to secure that funding provisionally at this stage.
Thank you very much. That concludes the Mayor's report, so you can get your breath back now. And thank you everybody for the questions. I'm now going to move on to item number 6, which is questions by members of the council. No written questions have been received. Item number 7, petitions. No petitions have been received. Item number 8, urgent business. No urgent business has been received for this council. Item number 9, 2023 to 24 polling district and polling places review. A report of the electoral services manager has been circulated as part of the agenda. Before we start this item, I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of the council to Gordon Amos, who's been with the council for nearly 18 years as the electoral services manager, and he's leaving tomorrow. What time is that?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock in the town hall. So anyone would like to come along and say goodbye to Gordon, be appreciated. Please can I call on Councillor Watkin to move the report? You have up to 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and you've just taken out half of my speech with that last comment. But may I say, I absolutely endorse what you've said. Gordon's been a wonderful servant to this council. He's been working for us for 17 years, and I think I've never heard of any serious, significant issue attached to anything to do with our electoral registration, our voting. It is so critical to democracy that service runs well. Gordon, just quietly behind the scenes, does a huge amount of work with his hugely dedicated team. And by the way, we'd like to welcome Sam Langford, who is joining us has joined us, I beg your pardon, on the 15th of January. Right. Anyway, every year the council has to carry out a review both of its polling districts and its polling stations. If we're lucky and the distribution of our voters doesn't change, such that we need to review the numbers placed in polling districts, and that the generous organisations who allow us to use their premises are still agreeable, we receive no substantial objections from residents to our arrangements, then all we need to do is obtain the agreement of council to continue as previously. I'm delighted to say that exactly describes the situation for this year, so I shall say no more except ask for council's approval to accept the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkin. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Stotesbury, reserve the right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand. I have Councillor Bell. Anybody else, please? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Can I just, thank you, Chair. Can I just offer my support to what Councillor Watkins said, obviously, and everyone else about Gordon Amos. Been a fantastic servant, and I did, have contributed and put a message in there.
Yeah.
And obviously, he has shown exemplary public service all the time he's been here. I think we all, across all parties, have trusted Gordon and his humour that he's had to have when it comes to election nights and election days. Sometimes they've gone on and on, but Gordon's managed to get us there. Overall, obviously, we support this. There's been a few issues about some of the polling stations. I know there's been nothing sort of official put in. I know there was one thing from Orchard, from the head, and he's still going to have elections there. The school is still going to operate partly there. There is an issue, I think, about the Grace Baptist Church. I think it is in the one in Colourland. Is it in Regent is it Regent Street? I might have got it wrong. There's an issue, Judge Street, sorry, I know there's issues there, but it's not listed here about them distributing leaflets and what they do there, the people there. But anyway, we can look at that. But overall, we support the what's in the motion here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. I'd now like to give the seconder an opportunity to reply.
I mean, I won't say anything more except thank you for that, and I completely agree with the comments made about Gordon. Just to follow up, of course, there are some officers' comments on what to do with regards to Orchard, so that's minuted in the report, but nothing further to add, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and now about Councillor Watkin to sum up.
I'm going to say very little, Chairman, except to actual Mrs. Welsh accent. It reminds me of Pembrokeshire Railway. He slightly used to that. But anyway, and I should have said, and it was churlish of me not to, I want to thank all those organisations, those schools, those community spaces who generously allow us to use their centres. Without them, we wouldn't have an electoral system. So I just want to put that on record. We are so grateful to all they do. And thank you particularly the head teacher at Orchard who's managed to find a way of working closely with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone in the electoral services team and all the work they do every year, so we can have these elections and they go off without any problems. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and thank you again to everybody for that. So I'd like to now move on to item number 10. I'm just right on it up. Move on to the vote for item number 10.
9.
Not, we're there. Wow.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah. Sorry. No, you're right. Item number 9, 2023 to 2024 polling district and polling places review. Does the council agree the recommendations set out on page 16 of the agenda pack? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item number 10, members' allowance 2023 to 2024. A report of the Democratic Services Manager has been circulated with the agenda. I'm inviting Councillor Watkin to move the recommendation. You have 7 minutes.
Again, I don't think I'm going to need 7 minutes, Chairman, but thank you very much. I apologise if this speech is more convoluted than in previous years, and I'm conscious that while we members are familiar with our allowances, members of the public who are watching us tonight may not be. So let me begin with a brief explanation. There are 3 elements of these proposals. Those that affect the Mayor's remuneration and the basic allowances for the rest of the councillors, those that affect the special responsibility allowances, and finally the allowance to be given to the proposed position of independent member on our audit committee. The Mayor receives remuneration and every councillor receives an annual allowance as a recompense for the time they are required to invest in carrying out their tasks. In addition, certain roles, such as, for example, members of the Cabinet, the Chairman, group leaders and chairs of certain committees, receive additional special responsibility allowances. Every 4 years, the need for these allowances and their level are fully reviewed by our independent member remuneration panel. Then each year, there is an interim review based on the outcome of the Local Government Services Pay Agreement, which for 2023 was announced on the 1st of November last year. To complicate matters, this year, rather than award a percentage increase, the Local Government Services Pay Agreement was for a lump sum of £1,925 on spinal point 43 and below, backdated to the 1st of April. Converting this to the council officers situation, this represented a median percentage increase of 4.59%. The chair of the panel, having agreed this with his colleagues, recommended that the Mayor's remuneration and members' basic allowances be increased by this 4.59%, but mindful of the financial challenges facing this council, which we're about to discuss shortly later on in the meeting, there should be no increase in any of the special responsibility allowances. You may ask, why is there any proposed increase in members' allowances? The simple answer is that the principle of these allowances has been long established to ensure that the role of a local council should not be restricted to the minority who can afford to carry out this role without remuneration. Democracy in Watford depends on a fair representation of peoples from different backgrounds, circumstances, racial and faiths. Looking around this room, I am proud that for Watford this is the case. So without further ado, I ask Council to agree to the recommendations set out in paragraph 3 of the papers.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkin, and for the information there. Can I have a seconder, please?
A second, Simon, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Reserve the right to reply. Do we have any amendments for item number 10? No, no amendments. Any members wishing to speak, please raise your hand. No members wishing to speak? Yeah, Jenny, would you like to round up? No? Councillor Watkin, you can sum up?
I think there's nothing more to add, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
I'm grateful that the council is supporting the proposal.
Thank you very much. So I now move to the vote on item number 10, Members' Allowance 2023 to 2024. Does the council agree the recommendations set out on page 31 of the agenda pack? All those in favour, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? No, carried. Thank you. Item number 11, appointment of independent person to audit committee. A report of the Group Head of Democracy and Governance has been circulated with the agenda. I'm inviting Councillor Hoffman to move the recommendation. You have 7 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair. So the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, otherwise known as CIPFA, have made a national recommendation in 2022 recommending that independent members are appointed to audit committees in local government. This recommendation was echoed during the Council's recent Corporate Peer Challenge report and endorsed by the elected mayor and portfolio holders. Today, nearly 2/3 of Herts councils have already appointed an independent member to their audit committees, with the remainder, including Watford, looking to do so. This acknowledges the wealth of knowledge and experience that independent members can bring to an audit committee, which is a crucial part of the smooth running of any council. So I ask you please to support the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hoffman. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Newstead. Thank you. Do any members wish to speak? Councillor Khan, anyone else, please? Councillor Khan, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. And we'll be in favour of having an independent member on the audit committee. I think we're in a period of local government where risks need to be judged and need to be looked at much more rigorously. Risks to local government finance, risks to council activity. And one of the ways to mitigate those risks is actually to have somebody who is actually independent, politically independent, to cast an eye on those facts and figures and so on. So sometimes often the political glasses can skew some of that scrutiny. So having an independent member on audit is important to mitigate some of those risks. So in that case, we will be in favour of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. I now invite the seconder, Councillor Newstead, to, with your right to reply.
Nothing more to say other than to endorse what is there and to agree with what was just said.
Thank you very much. I now invite Councillor Hoffman to sum up.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I don't have anything more to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So item number 11, appointment of independent person to audit committee. Does the council agree the recommendation as shown on pages 38 and 39 of the agenda pack? All those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's carried. Now move on to item number 12 on the agenda, Council Tax Support Scheme. A report of the Head of Revenues and Benefits has been circulated with the agenda. I invite Councillor Watkin to move the recommendations.
Thank you yet again, Chairman. The Council Tax Benefit Scheme is one of the most impactful ways this council can make a real difference to the lives of our struggling working age residents. While every authority has to have a scheme, some choose not to apply it, but we in Watford have always sought to provide the greatest benefit to those in greatest need who qualify for it by reducing the amount of council tax they're required to pay. We can do this with the government-funded Council Tax Support Scheme, which was introduced in 2013. However, every year since then, just like virtually all central government support, as will be highlighted in our budget debate, this amount has reduced year on year. So for financial year 24-25, we've had to carry out a complete redesign of the scheme, but even this lesser amount will save our struggling residents £1.1 million this year. What I'm about to propose will not affect pensioners who will continue to receive support under rules prescribed by central government, which we have no power to affect. So why are we proposing these changes? Quite simply, the present scheme is too complicated. Under the present scheme, recipients of universal credit may typically have to represent their claims as many as 8 times each year to reflect their changing circumstances. If they manage to keep up, each change has to be adjusted by a member of the team, and with a real risk of late payment needing further adjustments. Should you agree to the proposed scheme, then it will be far clearer for the claimants. They'll be able to plan across the year for the financial benefit they will receive. There'll be no need to keep resubmitting claims, and our officers will be freed up to carry out other tasks. A real win-win. So the new scheme will target support available to the poorest households, address the problems with the introduction of full-service universal credit, and tackle the significant increase in administration costs due to the high level of changes that we currently have to handle. So how will this new scheme work? This is demonstrated in the table on page 123 of your papers, which explains the scheme. There are 4 categories of claimants, ranging from a single person through to a lone parent or couple with 2 or more children. Then, depending on the level of weekly income they earn, they can receive up to 4 levels of discount: 100%, 75%, 50%, and 25%. Or if their income exceeds a certain level, I'm afraid they get no percent. So, for example, to try and make it a bit simpler, a single person earning less than £120 a week will receive the full 100%. A lone parent with 1 child earning between 275 and 330 will receive 50%. And a couple with 2 children receiving more than £440 a week will receive no percent. If you struggle to sleep at night, I suggest you read the 82 pages of legalese that describe this scheme. We wouldn't propose such a radical change without consulting a wide range of local organisations, including having significant meetings with the CAB and Watford Three Rivers Trust. As you'll see from the results in Appendix A, the results have been overwhelmingly positive. So finally, as you can see in paragraph 412 of your papers, there's an extensive detail on how the new scheme will operate, which I did not intend to outline here. Let me stress, in case you think that doing nothing is a good idea, that is not an option, for the reasons I've outlined quite clearly, I believe. I therefore propose that the Council adopts the recommendations as outlined in paragraph 3 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkin, for the information there. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you very much. Would you like to speak now? Thank you.
Yeah, I might as well do. Just to echo the comments of Councillor Watkin, I would just make a couple of very quick points. First of all, I think it's good that we have a scheme like this. It's easy to forget that not all councils do. We've had a scheme to help those lowest income households for many, many years. And I think that is something that we think is particularly important when we have a cost of living crisis. The second point, just to emphasise our thanks to Watford Citizens Advice, W3RT, all of those people that we collaborated with really closely in developing this policy. It is a simplification, but also means that we can target the support to those households more in need, most in need. And so I hope all of us can unite in supporting this.
Thank you very much. Do any members wish to speak on the council tax support scheme? Councillor Bell, any other hands? Councillor Stokesbury. Councillor Bell, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And can I also, welcome this. We do support this as a group. And as Councillor Taylor said, not all councils do it, but many councils, and I know many Labour councils, but I'm sure other Liberal Democrats do it as well as some Conservatives. It is very important to look with the cost of living crisis and with the council tax going up everywhere for measures that will help. And also, I'd like to pay tribute to the Citizens Advice Bureau. I know they do a lot of work, especially obviously under Emma. And I think we should note that, as the Mayor has already done. The amount of our families and our residents who had to go to the Citizens Advice Bureau in the last year or two has increased. And I think we need to recognise that and understand that. Important things in there, obviously, as Councillor Watkins said, especially page 49, 412, Band D remain as at present. Key changes, I know on, if you like, page 49E, there'll be no change when an applicant has non-dependents living with them. This is a significant change, protecting low-income families when an adult sons and daughters remain at home. No charge, not no change. And also on N, capital limit of 8,000. Which is important. So yes, there's important changes here, and obviously we should always do what we can to help those who are really suffering and under the cost of living crisis. So yeah, we fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. Councillor Stotesbury, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to just add that we've met with Citizen Advice Bureau so many times over the last year. They've been incredibly helpful for this. Councillor Bell, Watkin, and indeed the Mayor have just made this same point. We are sadly seeing a lot more people making use of such services and indeed looking to make use of this grant. It really is a true value for this council, and I'm glad it sounds like it will receive unanimous support that we try to support those in most need. So thank you very much for the hard work, and especially let's just echo that back to the officers for, as Councillor Watkins said, a particularly long report here, but a very important one too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak on this item? I'll invite Councillor Watkins to sum up, please.
I don't think I've got anything to say except to thank Councillor Bell for his support. I think this is a crucial way of helping our poorest or the most needy in our community. So I'm delighted that we're going to get full support across the council.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to round up. We're on item number 12, Council Tax Support Scheme. Does the council agree the recommendation as shown on page 47 of the agenda pack? All those in favour, please show. Thank you, and that's carried. Okay, we're going to be moving on to item number 13, which will be the budget and council tax resolution. Before we do, it might be quite a big item, so if anyone does need comfort break or to grab some water, please do feel free to do so. I don't want you sitting there and not being able to take part. If anyone does go, I will make sure you get your piece and time in it. So let's start working through this. A report of the Chief Finance Officer has been circulated with the agenda, including the report to Cabinet on the 15th of January and its minutes. I will ask Carol to explain the procedure for dealing with this item.
Thank you, Chair. The Mayor, as proposer of the budget, will be allowed to speak for up to 20 minutes. Councillor Bell, as leader of the Labour Group, has advised that he has delegated his right as group leader to speak for up to 10 minutes to Councillor Calm, who will therefore be speaking for up to 10 minutes. Other than the Mayor, who has the right to sum up, councillors will only be able to speak once during this debate for up to 5 minutes. The chairman has been notified of an amendment from the Labour Group, which will be moved by Councillor Calm. This has been circulated. You do have a copy on your table. It has also been published on the website. And I would again remind members that it is now a legal requirement to have a named vote on this item. So I will be reading out names in turn at the conclusion of this debate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Carol. Before we start, just a little reminder, a bit of information on the budget, as it is slightly different from normal motions. Each member will have 5 minutes to speak on the budget, but that will be 5 minutes to speak on the amendment and the actual budget. There won't be a separate debate on the amendment and then the budget. I'll explain that before we go for everyone to speak, but I'll now invite the Mayor to move the report.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I'd like to begin introducing the budget. Before I begin introducing the budget for the next financial year, I want to take a moment to thank officers and members that have contributed to this process. Special thanks to Hannah and her team, Councillor Mark Watkin, Donna, and many others for their hours of dedicated work on it. This has been a long and collaborative process in a very challenging financial situation. We could not have made these savings and prudent financial management decisions without this collaborative approach. We are a competent council, but we are made so by our councillors and staff who run our services to a high standard. Maintaining these high standards has been incredibly hard, set against a backdrop of heavy cuts from the Conservative government. It is no secret that over the years, local councils have had to respond to a growing demand on our services, whilst at the same time seeing our grant funding from central government cut. Our real-term grant funding from central government has been cut by over 50% in the last 10 years. The government has failed to address the grave financial challenges faced by councils across the country. To protect the local services our communities rely on, this funding is vital. Councils also need greater freedoms so that we can raise more revenue ourselves to fund our services. 2 weeks ago, the Chief Executive and I wrote to our Member of Parliament about the shortfall in council funding and put pressure on the government to provide additional investment in the services councils provide. Last week, we saw a much trumpeted response by the government to this. As a result of campaigning across the sector, we saw the announcement of extra funding for councils. But for Watford, this will equal an extra £30,000, we expect. The reality does not match the hype. While Watford is trying to respond to a £3 million budget gap, the government announcement will mean we get £30,000 more, so 1% of what we need. This goes nowhere near meeting the challenges we face. It could be described as a short-term sticking plaster, but even that would be overly generous. What we need is long-term funding arrangements for councils so that we can provide important frontline services for local residents and help people through the cost of living crisis. Sadly, in the autumn, the provisional local government financial settlement fell well short of stemming the serious financial pressures for councils, resulting from a decade of cuts, rapid growth in demand for temporary accommodation and homelessness services, higher interest rates and pay inflation. Something needs to change. So whilst we can't change the government, at least not yet, we are making every effort in this budget to ensure our finances are stable and that Watford Council continues to deliver for its residents. The Local Government Association estimates that councils are facing funding gaps of £2 billion in this financial year and £900 million in the next. An updated inflation forecast by the Bank of England shows a funding gap of £2.4 billion in this financial year and 1.6 in the next. A much worse picture than printed before. Across the sector, there's a £4 billion gap in local government funding. We've already seen several cases of councils declaring themselves bankrupt. Sadly, they may be the first of many. Analysis by Grant Thornton suggests that 1 in 6 English councils could run out of money in the next 12 months. So it's important to underline that these shortfalls relate only to funding needed to maintain services at their current levels. In the current economic climate, costs will continue to rise for councils. To simply continue funding our existing services, a significant increase in our income is required. Annual average inflation is forecast to fall to an annual average of around 6% in this financial year. This is not necessarily the case for councils, because councils purchase goods and services through annual contracts. These contract prices will often be updated in 23-24 based on inflation over the preceding 12 months. For these council contracts, we'll experience peak inflation this year. Within this challenging context, we've been working to balance the books and keep Watford on a steady course. Before the Liberal Democrats took control, Watford was one of the worst run councils in the country. Diligently, year on year, the Liberal Democrats have provided the best possible services for residents and managed their money wisely. Needless to say, Watford will not be going bust, and there is much evidence to suggest that we are a model council at a time when finances are tough to manage. We welcomed a team of 5 peers from a range of local authorities and the Local Government Association who visited Watford to undertake the peer challenge a few weeks ago. During their 4-day visit, the team gathered information across the council. The main finding was that Watford Council is delivering a hugely ambitious plans for Watford and has an unwavering focus on outcomes for our residents. Probably the most significant finding at a time when councils struggle with money is that Watford has a good record of financial stewardship and a clear understanding of our financial position. This is clearly a vote of confidence in the way we are running the council and delivering for our town. Last November, we also received news that our transformational plans for the Town Hall and Watford Coliseum will provisionally be awarded £16 million in funding from the Levelling Up Fund. The successful application will help us forge ahead with delivering our ambitions for this area in the town, unlocking economic growth and driving further investment in Watford. This will mean new jobs and opportunities for local people, as well as an exciting new venue to see some outstanding live performances. Very few areas bids were successful. So this is a major achievement for Watford and the council, and shows we are a council that makes the right decisions for our community and our future, reinforcing the findings of the corporate peer challenge. A saving goal of £2 million has been made because of significant pressures from 5 places. These factors include an increase in demand for temporary accommodation, elevated inflation contributing to heightened contract costs, including those associated with Veolia, and an unforeseen rise in staff pay awards beyond the budgeted amount. Furthermore, the impact of high interest rates has resulted in increased expenses related to financial debts associated with our previous, ongoing and upcoming capital spending. Added to this, the cost of living crisis is expected to lead to a reduction in income derived from services such as planning. In response to these challenges, the specific savings target has been set to navigate the financial strains posed by these pressures. The uncertainty about funding from the government further complicates financial planning, but we do have a plan. As part of that plan, we stress the inadequacy of relying on reserves as a long-term solution. This has been the financial ruin of many councils who have been over-reliant upon their reserves as a means for revenue. What councils should be doing is topping up reserves where possible, so we have the spending power to deal with emergency when they arise. Despite the economic challenges we face, this council remains dedicated to delivering on our council plan commitments over the period of 2022 to 26. This budget focuses on cost reductions, income generation, and prioritising the needs of residents. Acknowledging the impact of economic challenges on communities, the council aims to minimise service changes, keep residents informed, and seek public input through forums like the People's Panel. The budget takes action on financial stability and sustainability. In 2024, Watford Council will be committed to helping everyone through the cost of living crisis, protecting frontline services that we all use, enhancing our local environment and transport, supporting local businesses and attracting more investment to Watford. We are standing up for our communities through the cost of living crisis. We're collaborating with organisations such as the Citizens' Advice, as we just discussed, implementing a council tax reduction for low-income households and safeguarding essential services. This underscores our dedication to supporting residents, particularly those who find themselves most in need. Following the consultation, our council tax reduction scheme makes sure that support is available to the poorest households and reduces problems associated with high levels of change in universal credit. When designing these changes, formal consultation meetings were held with the Citizens' Advice and Watford and Three Rivers Trust. Because the work of Citizens' Advice is so essential, when working with the council to help residents, we're going to continue to make sure that we protect funding for them, providing over £200,000 in funding both this year and next financial year. I'm pleased that we are continuing to be able to provide real and timed support to organisations and charities that are at the forefront of the cost of living crisis through our grant giving programme. During 2023, I continue to champion the Watford Community Fund, raising thousands of pounds for organisations who are making a real difference across the town. The fund has supported a range of things, including warm and welcoming spaces, helpful food charities, community events that bring people together. The Mayor Small Grant has also helped more than 20 different organisation groups, and we're currently allocating over £300,000 through our neighbourhood grants budget. The Cost of Living Forum I convened in 2022 has been a vital source of information and insight into how people are managing in Watford. It brings together these groups and organisations that provide their perspective and share their experience. I'm delighted that together we have decided to keep the forum going. It's now called the Watford Community Response Forum, and we're going to maintain this highly effective way of supporting each other. I know that everyone here wants to see an end to rough sleeping in Watford, and I'm very grateful to council officers, to Councillor Jenna Pattinson and others who work so closely with local charities such as New Hope and One YMCA to help those who are experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of losing their home. In this budget, we provide funding for our winter night shelter, targeted support, and our Housing First programme. Rough sleeping must never become normalised, and we'll continue to make this a priority for the council. I know how important it is to improve transport in Watford. Working close with Councillor Ian Stokesbury during the year, we'll be expanding the Borough Bike Scheme to reduce congestion. We'll be introducing an electric vehicle car club to reduce emissions, and we've already launched the new shopper bus service to help those who need a bit more help getting about. This year we'll see many events in Watford. Working with our amazing cultural partners, we'll be launching the Watford Summer Festival this year. We'll be welcoming 2 new events into Castleberry Park, including a Caribbean food and drink festival and Oktoberfest. We look forward to our much loved events like Hearts Pride, the fireworks, Jive Swing, Colorscape, the beach and the screen. There is so much going on in Watford, and these events show how vibrant and successful our town is. In 2019, this council declared a climate emergency, and we recognise how important it is to play our part in supporting the environment. We have broken last year's record on tree planting. In our commitment to environmental sustainability, we planted 197 trees. I'm glad I got that figure right earlier. 197 trees across the town this year and gave thousands of trees away to residents and community groups. I said I'd plant 20,000 trees in this term, and we've already fulfilled that commitment. We've also ended 2023 with the fantastic news that Castleberry Park has again been recognised as one of the top 10 parks in the whole country. We'll continue to provide funding to maintain and provide excellent, indeed exceptional green spaces. Projects and awards like these reflect our ambition for a cleaner and more sustainable Watford. It is essential that we continue to support local businesses and investment in our town. To support jobs and local businesses, we have invested in new facilities at Watford Business Park, and the decisions made in this budget will mean that the Watford Coliseum will reopen. Working with AEG, we'll see a fantastic programme being delivered at this world-class venue, attracting visitors to our town and supporting many businesses. We are also committed to continuing to support other important cultural venues in our town, places such as the Palace Theatre and the Pump House, both of whom receive funding through our commissioning framework. Work is also progressing on a new innovation and incubation hub. Again, this will support the economic vitality of our town, and is only happening because of the drive and ambition of this council. The positive outcomes of the Corporate Peer Challenge underline the council's sound financial stewardship and firm focus on community outcomes. Despite the funding gap from the government for the upcoming financial year, Watford Borough Council remains resilient, actively engaging with residents through initiatives like the Watford People's Panel and supporting those most in need. The commitment to the environment and sustainability is evident through our record-breaking tree planting. And it demonstrates our ambition for a greener and more sustainable Watford. In the face of financial challenges and worries across local government, Watford Council stands as a model of stability. We are keeping to my manifesto commitments. We're delivering our council plan. We're maintaining a strong focus on delivering for local people. This budget will support people through the cost of living crisis, protect and enhance our local environment, and help local businesses to thrive. I urge you to back it so that we can deliver the best possible services for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Taylor. I understand that Councillor Watkin is seconding the recommendation and report. Councillor Watkin, you have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Oh, thank you very much, Chairman. Just bear with me one moment. As I just begin to use my computer version, my printer version isn't very good. Right, Chairman and Mayor and fellow councillors, when I addressed you last year, I stressed how uncertain our financial future was looking. This year, the picture is more certain, but more depressing. As the government has begun to get to grips with inflation, CPI now stands at 6.7%, but this time last year it was over 10%, which is positive, I guess. But on the other hand, lending rates now stand at 5.7% compared to 3.7% this time last year. So the cost of borrowing has gone through the roof. As with so many local authorities, this has hit Watford hard. Our Veolia costs, largely driven by the cost of wages, have increased by over 1.4 million. Our staffing costs have increased by 500,000. Our property income has been impacted by £500,000 by Wilkinson's closure. That's an annual loss, by the way. Our costs of borrowing have risen significantly, and reflecting the challenging, uncertain economic circumstances, planning applications have fallen. We have no certainty over future government funding, in particular new homes bonus, which we've had to assume that this will not continue beyond this year. The net effect of these has resulted in an increase in the budget gap in the medium-term financial strategy from a planned £81,000 to 2 million in 24-25, rising further to over 3 million by 26-27. So in the short term, we have to be able to plug this gap by drawing on our reserves and making some very difficult decisions. Doing nothing was not an option. So we instituted a hold on recruitment and carried out a complete review of all our services. To ensure consistency of approach and to protect our commitment to our residents, all services have been assessed using a set of principles, of which the key ones were: we must continue to provide the services our residents need most. We ensure charge for services keep pace with the cost of providing them, and that the Watford residents always come first when we do review charges. We've identified savings of over £2.2 million in FY 24-25, rising to 3 million in 26-27. These are detailed on the tables at the end of the report. In financial year 24-25, £600,000 will be from service redesign. Regrettably, these savings must include cuts to our remarkable staff. I think it's the first time I've ever had to report this, through voluntary redundancy and a restructuring of our outstanding senior management team, which will be covered in part 2 section of this meeting. This process is ongoing, so we have allocated £1 million in our reserves to cover any redundancy costs that will follow. However, this exercise has ensured that there will be no substantial cuts to our prime services. Inevitably, despite our tight controls and tight scrutiny by portfolio holders and senior management, we have to face continuing growth in the cost of running this council, rising by 2.4 million in 24-25. In October, this council agreed the level of fees and charges which came into effect this month, which will result in a net increase of income of £290,000 this year. Turning to our capital programme, we've carried out a review of all our capital expenditure and how we fund it to see whether expenditure can be deferred. The results of this review are detailed in Appendix 4. We're committed to completing the work on the Town Hall, including the relocation of the museum and the reopening of the Coliseum. The award of 12 million from the government's Levelling Up Fund, if we get it as it should, will ensure that we will be able to create our innovation hub. Regrettably, as part of this review, while we will be making some significant improvements to the core elements of Woodside, we have to delay our ambitious transformation scheme until after the medium-term financial strategy scheme. On the other hand, our Inspire industrial units in Watford Business Park will begin to generate significant income. Have I got to the end?
You've got another minute.
Oh, that's all right. Over the medium-term financial strategy, and which will improve our economy and bring more jobs into the borough. Separately, Lambeth Smith Hampton are reviewing our property portfolio to look to see if we can dispose of any certain properties that are no longer financially generating the income we require. The net effect of these changes, our overall capital spend in 24-25 will be 33 million. With the increased borrowing costs, we've had to look to see how we can reduce our borrowing, and we are looking to use internal funds that we have set aside to be able to offset some of these costs. Our financial challenges will require us to draw the 6 million from our reserves, leaving a balance of 23 million pounds, which is still adequate to meet our future needs, except that during 24-25 we'll need to top up our general working balance by 235,000 pounds. Finally, with all the pressure that I've described, we have no other choice than to increase council tax by 2.99%, which will raise £2.6 million. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkin, for that speed reading there. It is a challenge getting so much information in 5 minutes. I note this council has received an amendment to the proposed budget. I'll now invite Councillor Khan to move the amendment and speak over 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, fellow councillors. Can I thank the Chief Financial Officer, my colleagues, councillors, who helped devise this amendment. As we stand here today, the importance of local government in the everyday lives of our residents cannot be overstated. From the roads that we travel on, the bins that we fill, to the schools that educate our future generations, and the care provided for our elderly, each aspect of local governance touches the lives of every citizen. However, the current landscape of local government, particularly under the Conservative government, is fraught with challenges that cannot be ignored. Firstly, we must acknowledge the unacceptable local government settlement provided by the Conservative government. This approach has led to a starvation of resources to both county and district councils, compromising the ability to effectively serve our communities. The result is a direct impact on services that are crucial to our daily lives, such as maintaining roads, collecting bins and providing essential social care. These cuts are not mere numbers on spreadsheets. They represent real hardships felt by our constituents. Yet in this challenging environment, we cannot absolve the current Lib Dem Council of its responsibilities and shortcomings. As spoken earlier on today, the mismanagement of funds is glaringly evident in the case of £1.5 million wasted on the Arriva Click scheme. This sum represents a lost opportunity to invest in services that could have significantly benefited a wider section of our community. The irony is not lost on us here that Sir Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, has been vociferous in demanding resignations for failings, according to his Twitter feed, 31 times since 2019. The question then arises, who will take responsibility for this costly mistake? Is it the mayor, or is it the transport portfolio holder? In light of these circumstances, we propose an amendment to the budget focusing on efficiency, responsibility, and reallocation of resources for areas of urgent needs. Our amendment includes the following key points: savings and efficiency measures. So removal of the political advisor's role in the mayor's office, saving £57,000 annually. It's simply not needed. Necessary for the tax, it's an unnecessary burden for the taxpayer. The digitalisation of the My Watford magazine, saving a remarkable £26,000 every year, along with the additional savings from reduced recycling costs. This publication often serving as a vehicle for, unfortunately, Liberal Democrat propaganda. It must be reformed in whatever phase it's taken. A 20% reduction in costs in the communications department for the implementation of efficient and innovative practices. These measures are anticipated to save approximately £419,000 over the next 3 years. It's crucial to note that these savings come from areas currently used for partisan activities and will not affect essential services for residents. So what we will do instead, we'll employ an additional street sweeper in Callaland, the installation of new lightings in Cattery Park, the implementation of CCTV on Chester Road to enhance public safety and deal with fly tipping. We will also reinvest into the Economic Impact Reserve, maintaining a buffer in these financial turbulent times. It's alarming to note that under the current Lib Dem administration, the entire Economic Impact Reserve has been depleted. And more worryingly, our general reserve has plummeted below the essential £2 million threshold. Maintaining a robust reserve is not just good practice, it's a safety net, imperative for navigating through financial uncertainties. Our councils fail to do this and have seen other councils have failed to do this. That's awful impact on our finances, including, in rare cases, bankruptcy. Our amendment proposes a reallocation of funds into these reserves, thereby reinstating a level of fiscal prudence and responsibility that's surely missing. Furthermore, I must emphasise that the crucial need for a more assertive stance with developers during the pre-application stages. The soaring costs of temporary accommodation has become an unsustainable burden on our council's finances. It's high time that we demand a greater commitment to social and affordable housing. We visited this afternoon, the Mayor and Legate's Councillor. Affordable housing for these developments, we cannot continue to shoulder the escalating expenses of temporary housing without ensuring an adequate supply of social rent properties. By insisting on higher quotas of social and affordable homes, we not only alleviate the financial strain on our council, but also address a critical need within our community. Affordable housing, that's not just a line or item within a budget, it's fundamental right for our residents, a cornerstone for stable, thriving communities. Our proposal is a balanced approach, addressing the need for fiscal responsibility while ensuring that the core services that impact our residents' daily lives are not only preserved, but enhanced. We recognise that savings can be found without compromising on quality or accessibility. It's about prioritising what truly matters to our community. In conclusion, we urge all members to consider this budget amendment not as a partisan manoeuvre, but as a necessary step towards responsible governance and the betterment of our community. The choice we make today will echo the lives of residents tomorrow. Let us choose wisely and with the best interests of our community at heart to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. Councillor Bell, I understand you are seconding the amendment. Would you like to speak now?
I rise to second our Labour amendment and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. We will now debate the original motion and the amendment. So each member will have 5 minutes for this debate, and that debate will include your speaking on the amendment and the actual budget overall. And then we'll also, after that, there will be 2 votes, one for the amendment and then one for the substantive budget. So if you'd like to raise your hands for all members of this council who would like to speak, Councillor Pattinson. I'm going to do left to right from front to back, so Councillor Watling. Your left, my right. Councillor Dighton, got you, Aga, thank you. Start, Sarah. I'm going to get the surnames wrong because I'm just like avoiding them. Marilyn Devonish. Glenn Saffrey.
Close.
I'm going, yeah, I'm going like row by row. Peter Kloss. Stokesbury. Anybody else? Williams, Tim. I will try and keep the debate sort of balanced between both sides. I'll start with Councillor Pattinson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Nassif, for proposing the amendments. You talked a lot about social housing and housing challenges, which we agree, both of us, that there is the real challenge to the council, and the budget addresses that. There's not one mention within your amendments of anything to tackle the acute problems in social housing. And I don't really understand what the point of was talking about social housing while proposing this amendment that doesn't address it. The challenges in social housing in Watford currently are twofold. One, with the cost of living crisis, but secondly, with the Renters Reform Bill. Temporary accommodation has been rising right the way through our county. There's been no private rental homes in Watford advertised at a local housing allowance rate for over a year. So the challenge is real. However, we are building social housing. I think the Mayor and Councillor Khan visited, Councillor Shafiq visited Eatman Court today. There we go. And to look at the successful developments in social housing when we work closely with our social housing provider. The issues with housing are around government needs to address that. We need to put in more money into social housing. I'm afraid that the amendment doesn't make any mention of social housing. So I'm unlikely to be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pattinson. Councillor Watling, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, obviously, naturally, as people may predict, I will be speaking in favour of this amendment, to the shock and awe of the people to my left. Obviously, I'm speaking here on behalf of what has become a huge problem for my residents, which is, frankly, it's litter in our streets. All you need to do is walk down Leavesden Road once and you'll realise that there's clutter, there's dump rubbish, there's leftover takeaways, there's prams, there's sometimes even sacks full of used nappies that are just left on the side of the road. I won't go into too many more horrendous details to put you off your dinner later, but some of the stuff I've found with myself, residents and volunteers have been going out at the weekend to clean up our ward. Now, a lot of it has been a bit of DIY, where we've been doing it, picking up where, because Veolia only have one cleaner in the area, there's only so much they can do. Now, I'm not knocking the work that litter picker is doing. He's doing a great job, but he's only one person. There's only so much that they can do. A lot of the times when I'm out on my own, litter picking on my lunch breaks, the comment is always the same. Why are you picking up the tab when the council should be doing this? Now, while I appreciate everything that has been said in the budget, we've found some savings in order to afford an additional litter picker from Veolia. We pay Veolia millions of pounds a year, and yet our streets in my ward are totally littered with fly tipping, which I'll come to in a second, as well as dumping. Now, people might remember last year, I stood up here and said, you're raising collection fees for fly tipping. This might lead to more fly tipping. And I got ridiculed for saying that. And yet here we are, Veolia are having to get out letters because fly tipping has gotten so bad in Callowland, across the entire ward. So I didn't get listened to last year. I'm just asking if people could listen to me this year. I mean, my job is compliance. It's not financial compliance, I'll add, but compliance. And the main reason I'm bringing this up is because everything I tell departments that I audit within my work is I'm not your enemy, I'm a critical friend. And that's what I'm being here, is a critical friend to the Liberal Democrats to say that maybe we should reprioritise some of our funding, such as, the political advisor to the mayor. Mayor Peter Taylor, believe it or not, I actually like you. I'm going to put that out there, I like you. I'm being a critical friend here. You don't need a political advisor paid for by the taxpayer, in my opinion, Just going to put it out there, and that's why we're putting in there to remove that. So, end of the day, those letters to residents from Veolia did not happen last year and now they're happening because fly tipping's happening because I warned you it was going to happen. I'm now saying that we need additional litter pickers in Callowland because I'm going out spending my weekends and my lunch breaks with residents doing it. And I'm asking you basically to listen to me. So thank you very much. I hope you'll be supporting this amendment. I don't think you will, but I hope you will.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watling. Deputy Mayor Tyson.
Thank you, the Chairman. Colleagues across the chamber, thank you very much for your proposal. I must say, this time I was much more impressed than the previous years. Well done. However, I just wanted to go back to the savings what you're proposing, talking about removal of political advisor to the mayor, talking about digitalization, my Watford magazines, redesign the communication department. We will be discussing some of the item in the part B, so I'm quite surprised that you're putting this in your proposal. You talked about the digitalizations, and the Councillor Asif Khan finished his speech saying that we will deliver for community, and we need to think if we want to have a quality of accessibility. So may I ask you, where is your accessibility to those who doesn't have access to the computer? Talking about the lighting for safety with Castleberry Park. We work with the community safety team. We took the advice from the police. We care about the green area and the Castleberry Park like other parks. And we know that the lighting would be good. And we offered and proposed the best safe route, how to get in and town from the town. So how you wanted to do it? It's easy to say, but actually to engage with us, engage with the council and make it sure that we can deliver for our residents across the chamber, I think it would be much more proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Dyketon. I'm going to get this wrong. Councillor Sarah Jane.
Mr. Chair, Chair, there's a point of personal clarification, which is according to the Constitution as well. So the point about accessibility was asked about me. Watford residents will be provided. This is an amendment to what's existing at the moment, what the council is doing, which is about £450,000. The key thing about accessibility, it will exist, we'll provide it, and the Liberal Democrats dish their leaflets out anyway, which show what they are doing. So there's no extra need for it.
I'm just going to actually ask just for the point of council here. I believe, was that a point of order on digitalising My Watford magazine?
Yes, it was.
So can you just confirm what the amendment is for that? Because you've confused me. So
No.
So will there still be a paper? Because I'm just trying to understand.
No, it's a digitalisation of the printed copy.
Thank you.
And that's what it is. And I was asked a specific question.
Okay, no problem.
Which I had to respond to.
Just confirming that. Sarah Jane Treebar.
Thank you. I want to speak about our amendment, obviously, and in favour of it. The first thing I want to talk about is the CCTV on Chester Road. Obviously, it has been now, we think, 13 years that we've been coming. Before that was my predecessor, Mo Mills. I know there are a lot of areas where fly tipping is bad, but Chester Road, I think 13 years is quite, I think we're going for a record really here. To be honest with you, I was quite surprised that it only cost £4,000 to put CCTV in place. I think in the grand scheme of things, that's not too much to ask the council 13 years on. It's an environmental crime. It's not a victimless crime. There are many victims involved here. Now, I brought this quite a few times to the mayor, as I'm sure you remember, and I have to be honest with you, Mayor. Sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of victim blaming here, because you say people don't report it. Now, it does get picked up. Viola do a fantastic job, okay? It gets picked up every single time, I have to say. But every single time it gets picked up, there's more that replaces it. And people become tired, and it becomes almost part of the tapestry of Chester Road, which is awful to see. I went with the fellow councillors last week to look at it, and there were bags spread open, dogs had been there were people with pushchairs having to walk around it. Enough is enough, really. I don't want to keep coming here for the next 13 years saying Chester Road, Chester Road, Chester Road. So please listen to us on this particular aspect here. The other one, of course, is the lighting in Castleby Park. It's not often that Agra and I disagree on something, but this is somewhere where I really do disagree. We know it's come to council before to talk about this particular element, but also it's an area that I've brought up in other council meetings about women's safety. And I think to suggest a safe route for women to go on is quite patronising, to be honest with you. Women should feel safe to go on whatever route they want to, through any park, through any place in Watford. And I think it's really important that we listen to women, that we listen to our residents when they say they feel unsafe. And lighting is one of the areas that we can do something for. And I think it's really important that we do listen to women and that we don't tell them what they should do, but we listen to what they want and we implement that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Trevor. For the sake of debate, Councillor Williams, would you be okay coming back now for your section? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just I thought you might be able to expand on those sections there. I'll then move into Councillor Devonish, please.
Well, thank you everyone for the debate. So I just want to pick up on a few issues. Now, the digitalisation of the My Watford magazines. I know we've had conversations in different formats, in different meetings. Myself and Councillor Khan have specifically spoken about this in different contexts. And one of the things we've always talked about is inclusivity and digital poverty, which is a real thing. So I'm not quite sure if just moving completely to digital with the magazine would be the way forward, given previous conversations we've had over the years about how many people that would potentially exclude, because we know that digital poverty does exist. We also know that many people are not engaging online. So that's just one I would just like to raise. Now, in terms of the redesign of the communications department, the 20% efficiency saving, one of the things that has come up time and time again with regards to many of the scrutinies that we do when we're working with our partners, communication is always absolutely key. And when communication is poor, and when people are not aware of what is going on, that then reflects very badly. So we would probably be going from number one in many of these areas, sliding right back down the chain. So I'm not sure that communication is one of the ways to go, because that is one of the ways that residents know what's happening. In terms of the Ariba Click, I have to say, I do know there are people within this room who have made good use of that service. So whether or not it was a complete waste, I'm not quite sure that's the way I would phrase it. It's unfortunate that it didn't work, that for whatever reason there wasn't a take-up. But I would say with the people that I've spoken to who did make use of it, they wouldn't, I don't think, consider it to be a waste. But the conversation about why the take-up, that's maybe one for another day. Now, with the assertive stance with developers, one of the things that, I mean, the Mayor has already gone through it, so I'm not going to reiterate every single thing the Mayor has said, but with regards to that, we know that there is a challenge and a pushback from the Conservative government, central government. So being assertive is one thing, but when you are continually overruled, and you have targets that do not fit with the geographic footprint of Watford, it is very difficult. You can be as assertive as you like, but if you're having decisions that are then being overturned and overruled, that becomes a moot point. So we need action from central government. I would suggest that's something we can all work together on to push for that, because we all know the situation with regards to planning. Now, in terms of just finally the town boundary signage, having had countless meetings with, let's say, place shaping, Watford is a gateway. I always say it's the centre of the universe because we have such good connections. People's first impression is lasting. So if we then have poor signage, poor boundaries, the very thing we're asking for in terms of investment, you were speaking about the parade, the sprucing it up, making sure we want the whole of the town to be like that. Because when somebody comes into Watford, if their first impression is tatty, coming back to the issue about fly tipping, like attracts like. And if you come into a tatty looking area, people act accordingly. They do not respect the space. So I would say with some of these things that I'm looking at, and one of my questions is with some of these issues, with committees that I've been sitting on, there have been mechanisms to raise these throughout the year, not all coming like a truck at this particular point in time, because some of these actually are really worthy of good debate. But this last minute thing is probably not the most efficient way to do it. So I would say moving forward, we maybe raise some of these with the mechanisms that are in place, cabinet, etc. But those are just some of the points I'd like to make with regards to things that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devonish. Councillor Glenn Saffrey, please.
Thanks, Chair. Needless to support everything that the Mayor has said in his report and in moving the motion tonight. It's obviously a very, very difficult time economically for the country and the world in general. So I think, some of these decisions bring no pleasure at all, but there is room, I think, for a lot of pride in Watford and the resilience of the town and our residents and our local economy. In the way, we're facing these kind of economic headwinds with our heads held high. I make 2 points. The first is around, I can't see, and I reiterate what Councillor Pattinson said, I can't see anything in the amendment that addresses the chronic shortage of social housing that is a national crisis. Where I can see it is in the Watford local plan, which we are striving very hard to deliver, and are one of the few councils in the country with an up-to-date local plan. And I'm very, very proud of the work of our officers in, the local plan commits us to 35% of new developments being affordable, 60% of that requirement to be social housing. That is the way we're going to address these needs. And it is a constant battle that we have with viability assessments and things like that, and we've made that point to government very strongly and continue to do so. There is a national housing crisis in this country and we have to address that, and I think we have a plan to do it where a lot of other councils simply don't. So I would make that point. I also on the issue of digitalising the Watford magazine, I was literally this morning had a telephone call from a resident, an elderly lady, who wanted me to raise some housing maintenance issues with Watford Community Housing. I've done that. But when I said to her, look, they've said this, they've told me that. I said, well, can you send me the emails? Have you got the correspondence? Oh, no, I don't do the internet. I'm not online. I don't do all that. So somebody in that position, and maybe that lady had fallen for Lib Dem propaganda, I don't know. But somebody in that position needs access to high quality, reliable, trustworthy information on paper from their local council. And I'd like to, that is something that we need to continue to provide. So on that basis, I would certainly challenge those assumptions. And as I say, I think we can be very proud of the way Watford is facing what is an extremely difficult time, and the ambition within this budget. And I would support it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Safri. Councillor Peter Closs, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just got a couple of points to make on the amendment. And I do that as the Vice Chair of the Finance Scrutiny Committee. That committee is actually chaired by Councillor Khan. Not everybody may know, but actually there's three levels of scrutiny on the annual budget for council. The first level is the Finance Scrutiny Committee, who then make recommendations to the Cabinet, who consider the budget, and then it comes to this forum today. So the Finance Scrutiny Committee considered this budget on the 10th of January, and no recommendations at all were made by that committee to Cabinet for any changes. And that committee is chaired by Councillor Khan. I understand as well when Cabinet met to consider the budget, no Labour councillor was in attendance for that debate. So in one respect, it's a bit of a surprise to then receive an amendment and a proposal for budget changes when the two processes that are in place to further proposal changes haven't been used by the Labour group. The second point I'd make is, you look at the scale of the proposals for alternate budget arrangements, a total of £138,000 per year. Now, if we look at the budget figures, we'll see that the total cost of services, net cost of services in the council is £14.5 million. So Labour is proposing a change in 1%, less than 1% of the total service expenditure of the council. It doesn't matter whether these points are worthy or not, and some of my colleagues have already commented on their worthiness. The 1% change in the budget, I could only assume that 99% the Labour group agrees with. Where are the big ideas from Labour? There are no big ideas. They're fiddling at the edges, only addressing 1% of the council's expenditure. I think it's quite poor.
Thank you, Councillor Closs. Councillor Stotesbury, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleagues. I think we should remember this is a budget council, not an opportunity to try and push some partisan agendas, which I genuinely think is all I'm hearing from the Labour group this evening. I'm going to be a little bit more direct than some of my colleagues who I think have been very, very, very kind. You need to turn up and use the council and use the processes available to you to effect change. The chair actually had to ask for a clarification on your amendment on the day of the budget because we only received your amendment on the day of the budget. We've had to wait for your speech, which was colourful, Councillor Khan, but didn't really explain in detail why you wanted to do certain things. But I genuinely think it's outrageous that we hear from the Labour group periodically, and indeed it was one of the comments in the peer review, something we're working very hard to address, is how to support those who are digitally excluded. We've heard that from the Labour group on many separate discussions, and now this evening you're proposing cutting one of the primary mechanisms, a mechanism I should add that is endorsed and carried out by basically every council in Hertfordshire. I'm not sure what the stats are, maybe someone can check me, but I think it's like 90% of the councils in Hertfordshire have a magazine, and now you're standing up and claiming we should cut that so people don't hear from that magazine. That magazine is more than just having some numbers to contact the council. It's one of the reasons why Watford is successful, because it's part of a programme of working with our community. Go read that peer review. I really would encourage you. we were really, really well praised. And one of the reasons Watford Borough Council delivers is because we work closely with our community and closely with our partners. We also use that magazine to celebrate their work and promote their work and to work with them throughout the council. I would also note the mechanisms by which we tackle fly tipping and street cleaning. Very, very good. We all do litter picks, and of course we all continue to do that. And thank you, colleagues. I've litter picked right across the town. It's something very important to do. But what we really should remind ourselves is that punishing those who litter and punishing those who fly tip is of a critical nature. We've been working constructively, and thank you, Councillor Rodriguez and Councillor Williams. I'm sure they'll talk about it in a moment, to actually address structurally the issues around fly tipping and littering, but first and foremost we review fly tipping and try to catch perpetrators. That's a really, really important point to make. As Councillor Kloss has just pointed out, the Labour amendment only counts for less than 1% of this budget, so I do want to turn to some of the really positive things that are happening in this budget to really celebrate what's happening at Watford Council. So in the budget we're protecting and indeed continuing to invest in our transport services. Indeed, the Mayor Taylor made that point. I'm just going to add to what he mentioned, which is the Green Loop. One of the key objectives of the Mayor's manifesto is being delivered. We've been working closely with County Council to get that to be delivered. It's unfortunate that we have to do quite so much in this space because counties not investing in Watford as they should, but only through an ambitious Watford Council are we seeing those things come to the fore. And indeed that Transforming Travel in Watford document we've managed to get secured both through this council and indeed through County Council, and now we're in the delivery stage of that programme. Just today I was on site at River Colne where we're doing some dredging of some of the river there to restore one of the backwaters to the primary river. It's a biodiversity project that is so significant. In the peer review it had its own meeting to be discussed, at which point I had to try and hand fist the incredibly excellent work that we're doing with the wetlands too. We're not just doing a few things on this, we're doing loads on this, and indeed I noted earlier the question about tree planting. It's really well made. Just to say on tree planting, we've got a multifaceted approach here, and again Councillor Williams has just confirmed in a whisper to my ear that this is the case, but we are prioritising areas of low canopy cover as well as resident requests and council requests, etc. So we really are working very hard to do that, if only because one of the best things for residents is to see trees, but also we know that you need a certain critical mass of greenery for biodiversity to thrive. So it's really important. I really think this budget comes in very, very difficult, very difficult financial services, but I'm incredibly proud that we're trying to protect frontline services right across the board. We've limited our activity to voluntary redundancies. I really am very curious to understand what redesigning the comms department means to come out of nowhere. I'm curious if that's Labour proposing layoffs to staff or some other mechanism, because I just don't know. There's no detail here. But please come to us. We at Cabinet would have welcomed questions, would have welcomed input from Finance Scrutiny. We didn't even have it last year when the previous Chair of Finance didn't attend that meeting either. So please represent your residents and come to those discussions in earnest next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shrewsbury. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I just want to cover off the points regarding fly tipping. First of all, the fly tipping in Callowland. First of all, we did run a campaign in Callowland 4 years ago. We are running a campaign again now, as you know. I was a bit dubious about your comments there, whether you support it or not. I think it's a good thing. It should be supported, and ward councils should definitely support it. And any assistance you can give in that be warmly received. In regards to Councillor Traber, basically, yeah, to Chester Road. Chester Road is actually is positioned 10th in the hotspots of Watford for fly tipping. So it's not even the top 5 or anything like that. It is less reports than last year, which is positive. And basically, yeah, fly tipping as a whole in the whole of Watford has actually also dropped from last year. These are from the reports being received. I also would like to confirm that Watford as a council remains the top of the Herts councils for issuing fixed penalty notices for fly tipping. This is good news. Again, fly tipping is a problem. There's no doubts about that. It's throughout Hertfordshire, and we want to tackle it, and we will issue fixed penalty notice when we've got the evidence. There's no doubts. However, I really wanted to speak this evening because I miss Councillor Ian Sharp at these budget meetings, because he always highlighted what it was like the last time Labour was in control. Yeah, I'm going to do it in a different... I'm going to do it. I was 8 years old. Calm down now.
Let Councillor Williams speak, please.
I'm going to do it in a different style today. I'm going to do it in pantomime style. So I am expecting a bit of barracking. So are you all sitting comfortably? Well, a long time ago, it wasn't that long, it was about 20 years ago, in a land far, far away. Well, it wasn't a far, far away, it was in the great borough of Watford. There ruled the bad Baron Muskrat and his Labour cronies. Bad Baron Muskrat was ably assisted by his trusted henchmen. They were named the Head, the Bell, the Jactor. At that time, the Khan wasn't in the Labour fold, as he was out there with the outlaws. But I'm not talking about Robin Hood and his merry men. These were real bad outlaws, banned from Labour's rule in Watford was notorious, and they were known throughout the land as one of the worst councils in the kingdom. Poor service delivery in every aspect, streets unkept, poor refuge service, outdated leisure centre, the whole lot was poor. Councillor Watkin would be out here now talking about the litter. It was commonly known in some areas of Watford about Gropford was the name. It was a terrible. Rock bottom, low public satisfaction rates from residents. Missing £250,000 here, missing £250,000 there. Labour administration shrugged their shoulders. Financial accounts disclaimed 1 year, disclaimed a second year. I understand not a record ever achieved before or not a record ever achieved since. It was an infamous state of affairs in our borough. It really was a truly awful Labour administration, and to pay for their mistakes, their errors, then year on year, the good residents had to pay higher than inflation tax rises. Did this occur in austere times of government cutbacks, cost of living crisis? No, there was no excuse for this behaviour. In every pantomime, you need a dame. And along came Dame Dorothy Thornhill and her Liberal Democrat colleagues. Through determination, hard work, and a good team, both politically and within the council, she worked her magic and sorted out the account. Achieved year-on-year satisfaction rates, provided services that the residents wanted, great refuge service, excellent parks, award-winning leisure centres, excellent cemetery provision. The list goes on. For many a year, there was no increases in council tax. And even when council taxes came, they were less than the rate of inflation. It was a far, far cry from what was happening under Labour.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
Oh, yeah. I was expecting that. in every pantomime, you need a Prince Charming. And yes, along came Peter Taylor, who likewise continued the great works of running a high-performing council, despite the serious budget constraints of a dying Conservative central government. As mentioned by Peter and by Mark, it has been a challenging budget to set this year, the greatest financial challenge yet faced by this council. And yes, it's all down to the lack of central government support, whilst the demand for council services...
To round up, Tim Williams.
Okay. Politics aside, I like to think Labour Group know that. The budget this evening is a balanced budget, happy to support it.
Well, I have to admit that's probably the most entertainment we've had at council for a little while. Before we move on, just like to check, we have had quite a lot of debate on this, but are there any other members that have any urgent items to bring to debate on this amendment and the budget? Okay. Councillor Bell was the seconder. You have the right to... Yeah. I got it right for once. Councillor Bell, you have your right to reply.
9:15. Thank you, Chair. And sir, we seem to have touched, despite we've only touched on, what was it, 1% of the council's budget, as Councillor Koch said, we've certainly, well, we've got to them, haven't we? I mean, you know, all this, they've all come out tonight, haven't they? Even pantomime dames and everything, yeah. Even though he was a Tory back then, but I won't take that back. Something made him change. So, well, exactly, yeah. But as I say, I rise to second our Labour amendment to the council's budget. The key thing is that it's not our job as the opposition, whatever the size of the opposition, to come out with a full alternative budget. It's not our job. And you wouldn't also expect us actually, I know it's quite right to ask, as it happens at county council, as Councillor Watkin would say, why don't we propose something at the budget panel? It's always been traditional, you can mention certain things, but it's when it comes to the budget meeting that you do propose. So that all happened in Councillor Tim Williams' time and others as well, he knows that. As Councillor Khan said earlier, we try to be responsible and sensible in our approach, understanding that Watford as a small borough council is facing most of the problems that councils of all political parties are facing across the country, notably inflation, the cost of living, an economy unfortunately close to recession. And we're all suffering the consequence of the present government's lack of action on local government reform, which has led continually to cuts, stroke efficiency savings since 2010. It needs a new approach, and we hope later on this year, a Labour government with new ideas on local government finance, as of course I argued in the motion I brought to this council in October that was supported unanimously, and I thank you all for that, last October, where I called on the Chancellor to do more for councils like Watford. Sadly, of course, as people have said, he didn't mention local government hardly at all in the autumn statement, and it's only through political pressure that he's come up with this 650 million, which obviously in our case is largely for the county council like Hertfordshire. In our amendment, we take into account the Chief Executive's redesigned policy of going through again all departments and jobs at this council, and in particular, as we've said, and it's our choice, the mayoral office. There are other councils that even the opposition do have a political advisor, and not even just the administration. So that job, that position, is not something that has to be done. That's our point about it. We know the issues around about Watford, that savings could come from it, and the government policy, obviously, the parties still have their Lib Dem focus leaflets, or whatever they call them these days. But the redesign, looking at the comms department, the town centre signage, again, realistic, I would say helpful. Our extra street cleaner in Callaland, our focus again on finally CCTV at Chester Road. That's a priority we would make. Obviously, you're not going to do it, the administration, but fine. But we should think it is a council priority. It's our focus on, again, on returning monies to reserves. After, as Councillor Khan said, the economic impact reserve, it's disappeared. And so putting that back in, that's the reason I urge members to support our responsible amendment in a spirit of working together. Now, Councillor Khan did mention housing, and again, talking about being tougher with the government over targets. Over many years, either at cabinets or at DC, have always talked about we should have more social rented housing. On Riverwell, it should always be social rented, not just affordable. That's what we always say. We haven't got a particular, anything figures in the amendment as such. That's not for us to do. I mean, that again, we support what the Housing Trust is doing and cooperation with the Housing Trust, and in other, either on the Holywell, Riverwell, again, Yateman House today. Yes, we support all those kind of things. I do have to point out to Councillor Agadakan that there's nothing in here that we will mention in Part B. What Part B has got nothing to do with anything we're saying. That's a totally separate issue. I think that needs to be pointed out. I mean, I don't know if Carol can make that clear, that we've not said anything.
Don't think we can sort of
We've not said anything in our amendment that is going to be in Part B is a totally separate thing. So I don't know what that was all about. As we've said, it's important that we actually just try to be sensible, which we are in this amendment. It's only an amendment. As I say, you could say it's 1% of the whole budget, but that's it's not up to us to produce a whole complete budget of 14 million. We're just trying to be helpful in this one amendment. I think it's useful to support it, and I hope you'll back it tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your input in tonight's Budget Council. If everyone's finished, I call on the Mayor to exercise his right to apply.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your contributions to this. First, I would like to say thank you to Councillor Williams for an excellent speech, which we all enjoyed. It's good to see him back after his recent cancer treatment in full force. Labour seems to have a problem with people defecting from other parties to the Liberal Democrats. I'm really pleased that people do that often. Former councillor Suhail Bashir, who was until recently part of your team, working hard to make sure we get 2 new councillors in North Watford for the Lib Dems. Now, turning to this item, so the first of all, digitalising my Watford magazine. I don't recognise the impression they paint of that magazine. The last magazine had information about recycling, about EV charging, helping people through the cost of living. It even had the contact details of Labour councillors. Despite that, I think it was a good publication, which was actually really useful for people. 9 out of 10 district councils in Hertfordshire provide a magazine to their residents, including Labour. Every single Labour-run council in the county provide a magazine to their residents to keep them informed about what they're doing. The recent peer review, can I check who's read the peer review? Who's read it? Because Labour act as if they haven't. This is what it says. Despite a strong digital offer, Watford Council must review its approach to communication to ensure that those members of the community that do not have access to digital services have equal access to information, advice and guidance provided by the council. The one thing we do which is actually responding to that, making sure they've got the information, they're saying we should abolish. I don't agree with that at all. As Councillor Kloss rightly said, Labour agree with 99% of what we're doing. So when you look at these changes, I think it's important that we recognise that. In relation to the communications department, I think Councillor Devonish made a really good point about engaging with our residents. As Councillor Dyson did mention, we are making significant changes to that. This budget talks about service redesign. The communications department will be part of those changes. So I think that is really important that we don't forget it. When we look at the areas that they want to spend money on, I just want to pick up on one of them, which was the contribution to the Economic Impact Reserve. It would appear that they think we need to prepare for an economic disaster. Presumably, if Keir Starmer was the Prime Minister, they think things are going to turn badly in our economy. What does the peer review say? It says Watford Borough Council has a proven record of good financial stewardship and has significant reserves. That's the first thing they say. The first sentence on our finances, what they want to highlight is we've got good stewardship and we've got significant reserves. The Labour response is, we need to increase the Economic Impact Reserve because things might go wrong if there's a new government. I look at this and I think the Labour Party clearly doesn't have a vision for the town that's different to what we're doing. Clearly we're doing things right on housing, on the cost of living, leisure, environment, events, because none of this touches on any of that. Councillor Watkin, in a revelation, said that he likes me. Watling, did I not say? Councillor Watkin definitely likes me. Councillor Watling also likes me. Yeah.
Mayor Taylor, ground up once you've finished this section.
I am delighted that he likes me. To coin a phrase of another famous Taylor, when I look at this amendment, I have to think, do I not like that? I'll be voting against it. I hope you will too, and support the budget. Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you very much, everybody. Right, we will now vote on the Labour amendment first. The amendment has been circulated to everyone. I call upon Carol to ask members in turn how they wish to vote, whether it's for, against or abstention. Carol.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll start with you, Chair.
Okay, so against.
Mayor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Ahmed.
Against.
Councillor Alan Williamson.
Against.
Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Clark Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Devonish. Against. Councillor Dinser.
For.
Councillor Dyken.
Against.
Councillor Ezefed.
For.
Councillor Hannon.
Against.
Councillor Hill.
Against.
Councillor Hoffman.
Against.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Against.
Councillor Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Khan.
5.
Councillor Kloss.
Against.
Councillor Martins.
Against.
Councillor Newstead.
Against.
Councillor Osborne.
Against.
Councillor Pattinson.
Against.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Against.
Councillor Anne Saffrey.
Against.
Councillor Glenn Saffrey.
Against.
Councillor Saunders.
Against.
Councillor Shah.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Stotesbury.
Against.
Councillor Traybar.
For.
Councillor Tremaine.
For.
Councillor Walford.
Against.
Councillor Watkin.
Against.
Councillor Watling.
For.
Councillor Wenham.
Against.
And Councillor Williams.
Against.
Thank you. That's been lost, Chair.
Thank you very much. We now move on to the substantive recommendation. Does Council agree the recommendations as outlined in paragraph 3 of the Budget and Council Tax Resolution Report on pages 155 to pages 157 of the agenda pack? I call upon Carol to ask members in turn how they wish to vote.
Again, I'll start with you then, Chair.
For.
Mayor Taylor. 4. Councillor Ahmed.
4.
Councillor Alan Williamson. 4. Councillor Bell.
Abstain.
Councillor Clark-Taylor. 4. Councillor Devonish. 4. Councillor Dinser.
Abstain.
Councillor Dighton.
4.
Councillor Ezefed. Councillor Hannon.
4.
Councillor Hill. Councillor Hoffman.
4.
Councillor Jeffrey.
4.
Councillor Johnson.
4.
Councillor Khan.
Abstain.
Councillor Kloss.
4.
Councillor Martins.
4.
Councillor Newstead.
4.
Councillor Osborne.
4.
Councillor Pattinson.
4.
Councillor Rodriguez.
4.
Councillor Anne Saffrey.
4.
Councillor Glenn Saffrey.
4.
Councillor Saunders.
4.
Councillor Shah. Councillor Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Stotesbury.
4.
Councillor Traybar.
Abstain.
Councillor Tremaine.
Abstain.
Councillor Walford.
4.
Councillor Watkin.
4.
Councillor Watling.
Abstain.
Councillor Wenham.
4.
And Councillor Williams.
4.
That is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Carol. That concludes item number 13. Let me just confirm. So item number 13, budget and council tax resolution for 2024 to 2025. Thank you, everybody, for your great debate there. Item number 14, motions. No motions have been received. Item number 15, exclusion of press and public. Thank you. We're now moving on to the part of the meeting that requires me to ask council if it agrees to exclude the press and public from the following item of business. Under Section 100A, Section 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press may be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, as it is likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, that if members of the public were present during consideration of an item, there would be disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in Section 100, Section 1 of the Act for the reasons stated below in terms of Schedule 12A. So we are going to have a vote for the exclusion of the press and public for the Part B section. All those in favour?
Yeah, that's agreed.
That's agreed. Thank you. We'll now have a short adjournment while the live stream is stopped. Please can all members of the public press leave the room.
Just answer those keys.
Oh yes, keys, before everyone goes. A set of keys were found outside the building today. So if anyone does know who these keys belong to, please let us know. Thank you.